Morning, everybody, and welcome. We'll just start with a karakia to bring everybody in. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga. Kia mā kina ke uta, kia matatara ki tai, ihai ake ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, tihe Māori ora.
Māia ora.
Very appropriate karakia for today when we're having a bit of a cold day. Cease the winds from the west, cease the winds from the south. Let the breeze blow over the land. Let the breeze blow over the ocean. Let the red-tipped dawn come with sharpened air, a touch of frost, a promise of a glorious day. We're delighted today to have Mihi Blake, B. Stevenson and Tilly Van Eden join us from Māia, a leading communication studio, which Mihi and B founded in 2020. I just wanted to read a little brief quote from their website because it sums up so much about Māia and their approach. Welcome, brave one, to Aotearoa, New Zealand's home of kaupapa-driven communications. Māia means brave, but it isn't reckless bravery. It's the bravery of Polynesian master navigators when they set sail for Aotearoa and look to the stars to guide their way. Māia is bravery grounded in knowledge, and that is what is woven into all that Māia do. So Māia, I heard about them because they were part of a team that won a prestigious Public Relations Institute Gold Award last year for Government Relations and Public Affairs on a campaign, Mind the Gap campaign, to address the gender Māori and Pacific peoples pay gap. This is just part of the very interesting work that they do. And so B and Tilly will be talking to us about that campaign. And Mihi will be talking about some of their kaupapa Māori mahi. So welcome, Māia team, and over to you.
Kia ora, Robbie. Nau mai ki tā mātou hui ngā topa I tēnei wā. He mihi nui ki a koe, Robbie, no tō karakia, nā i tō tātou kaupapa I whakatūwhera. Hawai au, he uri tēnei no Ngāti Tūwharetoa, ngai tūhoi Ngāti Mania Poto me Ngāti Awa Hoki, ko Mihi Blake tōku ingoa, no Māia ahau. So yeah, kia ora everybody, and excited to be sharing some insights with you all today. Thank you to the Centre for Social Impact and also to Foundation North for this session. So yeah, excited to share everything with you today. To you, B.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko B. Stevenson tōku ingoa, no Kapiti ahau. I'm co-founder of Māia, as you've heard, alongside Mihi Blake, and I am down here in the very cold but beautiful Paraparaumu today. Yeah, great to be in the room with so many brave ones, as Robbie indicated, and really excited to share some of our insights that might help you all. So kia ora, over to Tilly.
Kia ora koutou, ko Tilly tōku ingoa. I'm a Senior Communications Manager at Māia. I've been here for 3 years now. Today's actually my anniversary. I'm up here in the Tamaki Makaurau office with Mihi. So yeah, a real pleasure to be presenting to you all today.
Cool. So we'll dive in, and first of all, I'll just go over what we're going to cover today, so you've got an idea of what's to come. We will talk a little bit about the whakapapa of Māia, where we came from, what our mission is, and then we'll talk about the conscious communications framework that we've developed, that we use with all of our mahi. And then Mihi and Tilly will dive into some of the examples of that framework in action, some case studies, and then we'll round out with some tips that you can draw some inspiration from and maybe put into action in your own mahi at the coal face. And of course, there'll be pārtai at the end as well. So feel free to drop those into the chat, I believe, and we can go through those at the end. So we'll get into who we are. So as Robbie mentioned, we are a kaupapa-driven communication studio. We have our main base is in Ponsonby in Tāmaki Makaurau. We are a team of 11 now. So we've grown from our COVID days where Mihi and I bonded over a shared values base and decided to scale up our impact together. And where we began really volunteering our services to see how we could help Aotearoa get through a tough time. And yeah, here we are today, having developed a framework that we find really works to achieve our mission, which is to improve social outcomes through marketing communication strategies and campaigns. We are also on a mission to bring more diversity to the communications industry, and we hold that close in all that we do. And so, yeah, we are quite a lean team of 11 purpose-led, amazing, talented communicators. And yeah, that's us. That's who we are. Started with just Mihi and I, shortly followed by Tilly, and now we have a great team behind us.
Yes, and so just a little bit more background. So we have 4 pō within our business at Māia. Kaupapa Māori, which is where we provide communication strategies and campaigns for iwi and kaupapa Māori businesses, and also organisations who are on a journey of cultural and diversity strengthening. We have our causes pō, which is where we amplify voices of charities, government organisations, and also not-for-profits. And obviously those who are single-minded in your pursuit for the greater good. So it feels like we've got a lot of you here today. We've got a music and entertainment pō as well, which is where we support a range of independent artists and entertainment brands and events. And our conscious commerce pō, which is where we help established businesses articulate their purpose and bring more impact to their operations. And these are just a few of the kaupapa, our client whānau that we have supported and had the honour to work with over the last few years. Hopefully there's some in there that you recognise.
Cool. And so, yeah, we'll get into the way that we work. So as I alluded to, we've developed the Māia Conscious Communications Framework. So we talk about the way that we work being like weaving a tukutuku. So tukutuku is the intricate woven walls of a meeting house. And to create a tukutuku, you first need a plan and a purpose. What are we trying to create here? It also takes a bit of back and forth. You can't do it on your own. And so we first start with, what is your purpose? He aha tō kaupapa. Once we know your purpose, we then can weave together our knowledge and perspectives and your insights to create something that's uniquely beautiful and that allows you to tell your story to those who matter most. So this process really comes to life through our 2 key products. So the first is the Conscious Communications Framework, which is the 5-step pathway to producing an impactful communications plan and strategy. And so that is, we'll just stick on that slide. Thanks, Michelle. That is something that we can deliver within 4 weeks. It's got a price against it so that people who are working with us know exactly what they're in for. It's something that we've spent a lot of time developing, and we know that it delivers the goods at the other end. So it starts with a really fun workshop where we draw insights out from you and your team. We find out who you want to serve or who you are serving and what's the environment that you're operating in. We will ask you things like, what's your perfect day? What's the legacy that you want to leave? And then we take all of those insights along with any other data that you provide, and we hold internal creative sessions at our studio. We really believe in diversity of thought, so our whole studio comes to those creative sessions. And it's sort of part science, part art, but we then come together and create a memorable creative strategy with pillar or PO of activity that we know are going to achieve the impact that you really want to achieve, and that will speak to your people and champion your kaupapa. We also produce a 12-month calendar of activity so that you can kind of just put it on the wall and know everything we do, we're going to be intentional about it this year, and every dollar we spend is going to be moving towards something important. So then we take what you've told us about your audience, your values, your muses, and we create a voice, a brand strategy. And this is a crucial part before you get into campaigns. So it includes a messaging framework, the tone of voice, and a whare kōrero, which is like a message house, and your master narrative that can then be spoken in all facets of your organisation. So yeah, we produce your strategy, and then we've got our other product, which is the Impact with Intention. And this is our campaign management program. It's a really accessible set price. There's a setup phase and then a monthly delivery period where we cover owned, earned, and paid media. And so we deliver all of that within our team, and we work closely with news outlets, national and global media bases, and we've got social and digital partners as well. So that's just a little bit about how we work. And then what underpins the conscious communications framework on the next slide is 5 Ps. So if you're familiar with marketing and communications, you may have heard of the 5 Ps: price, product, promotion, placement. Where are you placed on a shelf? Doesn't really make sense in the cause space. We've flipped this a bit. And so the first P we start with is your personal purpose. What connects you to this kaupapa? That's going to keep you going in the tough times. And it's also going to be interesting to tell that story when you're getting out there in your marketing and comms. So we want to know what makes it personal for you. Then we look at purpose, a really crucial part. Everything starts there, and should be driving all that you do. So getting really clear about what is the legacy that you want to leave, what's broken in the world that you are in a position to address. We look at people and planet. So who are you serving, and how can they be part of that purpose? How can they buy in, so that we really go through all the stakeholders to make sure that that's a symbiotic fit. Then it's about producing a product. So what is it that you've developed that is so fit for purpose, because you know your purpose and you know your people, that it is so inherently good that people just want to follow you and listen to what you're saying. And the theory goes, if you get those 4 Ps right, you don't need to spend as much on promotion, which is the how. And so it's a really interesting way to look at communications, and it's the way things seem to be going, and it seems to be getting great results for us in the kaupapa that we're working with. So that's our 5 Ps, and we can talk a little bit about that later on as well. So I'll hand over to Tilly now, who can take us through our first case study.
Yeah, so to show how we put that framework into motion, I'm going to go through some case studies that we've worked on. So as Robbie mentioned earlier, we were part of the team that worked on the Mind the Gap campaign. So the Mind the Gap team approached us in October 2021, and they had the courageous ambition to address pay gaps in Aotearoa. And they wanted to do something that was a world first, a campaign that drove big businesses to commit to a voluntary pay gap registry. And in doing so, this would reduce pay gaps for gender, for Māori, Pacifica and other ethnicities. This was the plan because we know that from international data that when businesses measure and know their pay gaps, they're more likely to work towards closing them. So we were responsible in the team for developing the overarching campaign strategy, and this was labelled Mind the Gap, and we also drove its tactical execution. The campaign was launched on October 20th, 2021, and this was the 49th anniversary of the Equal Pay Act. And what we were hoping to do here was signal to government that we were expecting action by the 50th anniversary of the Equal Pay Act in 2022. So the problem that we were aiming to address with this campaign was the significant pay gap issue in Aotearoa that was prevalent for gender and ethnic minorities. There was a lack of awareness of this pay gap, including what causes them, what they are, and what the implications are in New Zealand. There was also significant economic pressures at the time. This campaign was quite soon after COVID. So inflation was steadily rising. Families were also facing the economic pressure of the holiday season with Christmas coming up. And we also knew that women were most negatively impacted by the pandemic. They were more likely to face things like redundancies and burnout, as well as always being more predisposed to pay gaps. So to solve this problem, we began our strategy development, and we had 3 clear objectives. The first was to lobby government, and we wanted them to mandate legislation that requires pay gap reporting for big businesses. We also wanted to compel 40 to 50 businesses to sign up to the public pay gap registry. And we wanted to rally the public to ask and call for change from their employers and other big businesses. We needed employees to feel comfortable about asking their employers about pay gaps. So we had a range of key audiences that we needed to communicate to in this campaign. The first, of course, was government. The next was businesses with more than 50 employees. This was because they employ most of Aotearoa, so they can drive the most amount of impact. They're also most likely to be able to measure their pay gaps. We had a range of alliance organisations that we worked with. So this was friendly organisations of Mind the Gap who were also fighting for this cause. And we had key groups that we were working with. So Māori, Pacific and ethnic communities, disabled communities, and other intersectionalities as well. And to get the attention of government and business, we also needed to get the general public involved. So the insight stage of our campaign development process is really important. So when coming up with a strategy, we always conduct extensive research to ensure everything is insight-driven. And these were some of the key insights that we were working with on the Mind the Gap campaign. We know that businesses make economic-based decisions, and they're also motivated by reputational outcomes. We knew that businesses didn't want to be named and shamed in the reporting process, and they don't like being told what to do by government. So just doing the right thing wasn't necessarily enough motivation for them in reporting their pay gaps. They also needed to know what was in it for them and the economic benefits. With this being post-COVID as well, government were concerned that businesses had enough on their plates post-COVID, and they might push back on this. So that was an important consideration. And we also know that government and business are heavily influenced by the court of public opinion. So engaging the wider public was really crucial in influencing business leaders in government. But we also needed a really simple, interactive way for the public to show their support. So with those insights in mind, we worked on developing the campaign strategy. And we ended up calling this Line Up for Equal Pay. So this was a rallying cry for our key audiences to line up in acknowledgement of the pay gaps and call on support for the new legislation. And these were our tactics that helped us implement the strategy and put it into action. So first off, we had evidence-based messaging. So this was for the business audience. And it really focused on things like talent retention and attraction, which was important post-COVID. We focused on appealing to consumers and showing that they had dedication to corporate social responsibility. So these were all benefits for business when it came to committing to pay gap reporting. We also focused on celebrating businesses when they showed leadership. So this was more of our focus rather than naming and shaming businesses that weren't yet taking steps to report on their pay gaps. We used people like well-known business leaders who spoke up in the media about why they decided to measure their pay gaps to help encourage other business leaders to do the same. Our messaging also showcased young wahine spokespeople, and that was across all of our channels. And we also provided government with updated impact reports every month so that they could see the progress and the traction that was being made on the campaign and the detail that was going into it. To gain public interest, we launched the Just Ask campaign. So this encouraged people to ask their employers about pay gaps, as well as other large businesses. And we also were encouraging them to share their stories on social media with the hashtag Just Ask. On the Mind the Gap website, we housed a kit of resources that had everything people needed to just ask themselves. For government, one of the key messages was Equal Pay 365. So this was a signal that we were committed to keep on the messaging for a whole year, every day from 49th anniversary of the Equal Pay Act until the 50th anniversary in 2022. Another one of our key tactics was a pay gap reporting masterclass. So this was for business leaders to attend so that they could learn how to report their pay gaps, what that even means, and why they need to. So this was another way that we supported businesses through the process rather than having an approach that named and shamed them. Another key tactic was partnership opportunities. So yeah, really rallying the troops and working with like-minded organisations. So Mind the Gap has a range of alliance organisations. So like Gender Tech, New Zealand Human Rights. So getting all of these organisations involved was really important, and they were really keen to support. So some of the key spokespeople from these alliance organisations include the Equal Employment Opportunities Commissioner, who led the National Inquiry into the Pacific Pay Gap. We had people like Kathy Hendry from Strategic Pay, who's a remuneration professional. So all of these people added really important different perspectives to the conversation, as well as an added layer of credibility. So that was our campaign, and I think Michelle is just going to play a video in the background on mute, and I'll talk through some of the things that the campaign accomplished. So it all culminated for us on the launch of Aotearoa's first public pay gap registry on International Women's Day on March 8th, 2022. So over 5 months, we were part of the team that developed and executed this purpose-driven marketing strategy. And it was able to blow its original KPIs out of the water and capture the attention of our audiences. Most importantly, the campaign created real lasting change, which was awesome. And some of the things that it achieved included influencing 47 employers to publicly report their pay gaps. And we saw the Workforce Select Committee conduct an investigation into pay transparency and ultimately recommend the government to commit to addressing pay gap reporting on ethnic and gender pay gaps. In the media, we amplified about 17 diverse spokespeople, and we collaborated with media to secure about 106 pieces of media coverage, which had an estimated 3.5 million total audience impressions. So yeah, we were really stoked with the results of this campaign, and the most important thing was that it achieved real change for everyday people, and it was also at a crucial time post-COVID when there were lots of economic pressures going on. The government ended up delivering on its commitment to introduce pay gap reporting legislation, and ultimately that saw women on the median wage receive an average of a $35 weekly pay increase. And today, the team continues on with the mahi, and more than 100 big businesses now report on their pay gaps on the Mind the Gap registry. This was a really fantastic campaign for us to be part of, and I personally had lots of learnings from it, and I think the whole team did. and we've carried this into a lot of our other campaigns. One of these was to lean on other marketing channels when earned media can become hard to achieve. So we know that earned media can be extremely effective in a social impact campaign like this, but sometimes unexpected events can arise that can make that earned media harder to achieve. One thing we did to combat this was develop a newspaper insert in partnership with staff that highlighted stories around the importance of pay gap reporting. So this insert landed on the desks of MPs, and it was put in place to ensure that the media noise on International Women's Day wouldn't overtake Mind the Gap on the day. In the end, we were able to get strong cut through on that day, so the newspaper insert was a really impactful accompaniment to this earned coverage. We also saw success in our approach of empathising with businesses and government and their positions, rather than leading with aggression. So when we highlighted the benefits of pay gap reporting to these audiences, we found that they really listened. Another key learning was the importance of engaging young leaders. So we had some young wahine like Nina Santos and Latavia Tuolasi Totai from the YWCA, and they put some really impactful faces to all the stats and the research that we were citing. They told their own stories about how pay gaps have affected their lives, and this had strong pickup from media and added an extra emotive layer to our messaging. And that's Mind the Gap. So I'll take you through another case study of Read Disorders New Zealand, who we've been working with for a few years now. So Read Disorders New Zealand is the only umbrella group for read disorders in New Zealand, and they provide a strong common voice to advocate for an equitable healthcare system that works for all the Kiwis in New Zealand with a rare condition. And that population has about 300,000 people in it. So it's actually quite large, and it's about the same amount of people that have common diseases like diabetes. They strongly advocate for a national framework for rare disorders in New Zealand, which has seen significant progress this year. So last year, in March 2023, we worked with Read Disorders New Zealand to launch the first ever Read Disorders Month in Aotearoa. We developed a key creative for the campaign, which was Glow Up, Show Up. So this was all about calling on the wider community to advocate for change. And this was important to take the burden off the rare community, who are often tired and unwell and don't always have the energy to advocate for that change. So Glowing Up is all about bringing rare disorders out of the darkness and into the light. And Showing Up is all about being there for the people in your life who are affected by rare disorders. Glow Up, Show Up was designed to be used for at least the next 5 years. So it was a message that came from our long-term strategy that we developed for Read Disorders New Zealand, which we called the High-Vis strategy. So the strategy includes scope to adjust the secondary messaging every year in the annual appeal time, depending on the needs of the community at the time and also the state of play with government. A key message for government was to do right by rare. So this was about following through on their promise to deliver a rare disorders strategy. So we've just completed our second Read Disorders Month with Read Disorders New Zealand this March. And here is a video from the 2023 campaign actually, but I'll run through some of what the recent campaign accomplished. So together, this was a real team effort. We worked together with Read Disorders New Zealand, as well as the rare disorder community across Aotearoa. And most importantly, the significant progress that was seen was in the rare disorder strategy delivery. So unlike most OECD countries, New Zealand doesn't actually currently have a rare disorder strategy. So that's been a key part of what we've been advocating for with the Rare Disorders Months. So during Read Disorders Month, we received an update that the final draft of the first ever rare disorder strategy in Aotearoa is being considered by the Minister of Health and is progressing well. So this is a huge achievement. Also throughout the campaign, we secured 58 total media pieces leading up to Read Disorders Month and throughout, including on the launch day. There were 2 news pieces and a breakfast piece the next morning. The campaign had 2.4 million audience impressions and achieved over 3.3 million in estimated advertising value. One challenge we faced this year with Read Disorders Month was just before the campaign launched in March. We weren't sure exactly where the government were at with the strategy. They'd indicated that they were maybe about to make an update on it, so we didn't know exactly how to go with the messaging. So we came across this issue, do you go with a hard-hitting messaging that presses for change, similar to what we had done the year before in 2023, or do you soften your messaging in an attempt to grow the relationship and trust with the government? So what we decided to do was keep the messaging positive and hopeful at the beginning of the month. We were hopeful about the government's progress, but we were always reiterating the importance of the strategy being impactful and including guidance from Read Disorders New Zealand. Throughout the month, we saw progress stall a little bit, so we went a little harder on the messaging. And this is where we really started utilising voices from whānau with lived experience of read disorders, who could speak about their struggles in the health system with there being a lack of a read disorder strategy. Towards the end of the month, we had news that the strategy was progressing well, so we could make the messaging more positive, and that was when we really were able to celebrate the success of the advocacy work that the read disorders community had been doing together. So some of our key learnings from working on Read Disorders Month for the past couple of years are these. So much like Mind the Gap, one key learning is the importance of working alongside organisations and communities that can amplify your message. So we had dozens of read disorder support groups, we had schools, workplaces, community groups that all got behind the kaupapa. This year, we even had 45 buildings and monuments that glowed up on Read Disorder Day. And organisations like Rowing New Zealand have also had dress-up days to help raise awareness. So what we've found is that if you lend a hand to these partners and give them everything that they need to promote the cause, then they likely will. With the advancement of the Read Disorder strategy following March, we saw the importance of public voices in influencing change. So we know that engaging communities will always be an important part of capturing the government's attention. I'll pass over to you, May.
Great, thank you, Tilly. So we just wanted to give you a small taste of some of our work in the kaupapa Māori space. And hopefully this will allow you to see how a conscious communications lens can be brought to kaupapa Māori, particularly. So the first example of mahi that we've done is with Nau Mai Rā, who some of you might know. They're the first kaupapa Māori power company, and they have a vision to make power equality a reality in Aotearoa. So we started working with Nau Mai Rā on a pro bono basis, actually, in early 2021. And we secured and worked on an in-depth investigative story on power poverty with Jahan Castaneda for Stuff. So this piece then catapulted the business, and multiple news pieces followed this one investigative piece. So this all helped to call government and also generators to the table. We then built a long-term communication strategy, which was called Step Into Your Power. And this allowed the team at Nau Mai Rā to really step out as cause leaders. Following that, in 2022, we ideated and scripted and produced a viral piece of content called Kia Tuakana, which was calling on Aotearoa to kia tuakana across social media channels, which really means to be supportive of those who don't have the means to support themselves. And this was a really key concept of the No Māia brand. And from there, we followed that up by ramping up our support and becoming part of the key team for No Māia. We helped drive their growth strategy to welcome 10,000 whānau on the waka. And following that, No Māia co-founder Ezra Hedawani was named the Kiwi Bank Young New Zealander of the Year in 2022. So a real example of cause leadership strategy in action. Another kaupapa Māori client whānau who is very close to our heart is Ngāti Kuri, which is the Far North iwi. We actually started working with Ngāti Kuri through COVID, and our first mahi with them was to increase iwi resilience through COVID-19. So we delivered what was an award-winning communications campaign called He Koe Te 100. Quite innovative in that it culminated in the first music festival in Aotearoa since the Omicron outbreak. And that festival was a way to reward collective iwi efforts and vaccination. So it was really a multi-channel campaign, which included brand design, organic and paid social media content, a lot of earned media, and also linked into a key media partnership as well, with communications directly into the community on top of that. So we really had sustained messaging across that length of time, which helped to increase those vaccination rates in the rohe, and ultimately protecting Ngāti Kuri whakapapa. So we used a deep dive into insights to really inform messaging around this campaign. And we successfully spoke to rangatahi and kaumātua in remote locations. And yeah, the messaging was very much driven by insights, which, as we've said, is a really important part of the development of our strategies and campaigns. The campaign itself was named a finalist for the TVNZ Marketing Awards in that year, and we were also awarded a Silver Effie and a Silver Prezi at the Comms Council Awards. But more than that, the campaign has become now a resilience campaign from Ngāti Kuri, which gets rolled out whenever the uri needs to rally together. So our second iteration of He Koe Te 100 was a booster campaign. We stuck with the music theme here because that music is very important in that rohe. And local band Papa's Pack recorded and released the Far North anthem Muri Whenua Waiata to promote this booster campaign. It was actually launched in Waiata Anthems Week, and it was again a acknowledgement of the iwi and the rohe banding together to protect their whakapapa. And the Waiata has actually had over 700,000 streams now, and was actually in the top 10 te reo singles for almost a year. And finally, our final example of mahi in the kaupapa Māori space is M9. We are the communications partner for M9, which is the gathering of 9 powerful Māori voices on stage. It's a really impactful kaupapa, which puts te iwi Māori at the centre and showcases beautiful stories and whakaaro of te iwi Māori. So we worked with Janda, who is the events company behind M9, and Ria Hall to develop a conscious communication strategy, which was called Behind the Curtain and Beyond the Stage. And really, we aimed to create that connection to the audience by taking them behind the scenes of the kaupapa, and also allowing them to see themselves in it. And then through the development of that campaign, which was multi-channel again, and included social media strategy, a lot of media relations and engagement, but also engagement with partners and key stakeholders. We have managed to build the M9 following and create really loyal fans in a very short amount of time, but most importantly, driven all-important event ticket sales for the kaupapa. So again, we used insights to really ensure that we kept te iwi Māori at the heart of our comms, and using kōrero tuku iho and mātauranga to connect with the M9 audience. So it's been, since early 2023, we've supported 4 M9 events now, including the most recent, which was Te Tiriti-centred Katoheo, I Am the Sovereign, in February. And currently we're preparing for the first M9 show in Te Whanganui-a-Tara at Matariki. So yeah, just a short taste of some of how you can apply our conscious framework to kaupapa Māori. Kaupapa Māori is one of our key values at Māia. So we're really grateful that we have the opportunity to uplift the hard work that kaupapa in this space are doing through our framework.
Kia ora. Well, now we'll move into our top tips section. So I'll start with a few on the strategy side of things, and then Tilly will take you through a few on the tactical side of things. So first, as we keep saying today, it's all about starting with purpose. So I can't say this enough, it really is your secret weapon, especially if you are working with the media. It's really an advantage. So media are getting hundreds of emails a day from commercial brands who they really don't want to write about. So the more noble your cause, the more likely you are to get cut through and to really build a relationship with the media to reach your audience. So always, hold that purpose close. Leading on from that, I want to talk a little bit about cause leadership. So you would have heard us mention that a little bit today. You may have heard of the term thought leadership if you're in the comms space. This is where you sort of become a go-to person on a certain topic. What we encourage is cause leadership. So first, it's about defining that cause. So seeing the problem in the world that needs fixing and then working towards, as a team, towards addressing that. So you want to define it and then lead it. So Ezra Hirowani, he's the cause leader for power equity. Joe Cribb, Delwyn Stewart, Nina Santos, they're the cause leaders for pay equity. Rare Disorders is doing the same thing in the space of equitable healthcare for the rare disorders community. So think of yourselves and your organisations as a cause leader. Wherever you hear the words related to that cause, you want to be seen. So if that's events, social media, in the media, you want to put yourself where it's being talked about. Do that, and then people will start to look to you for comments, for solutions, and actually see you as the heroes that you are. This is not about ego, it's about advocacy. So I really encourage you to, hold on to that thought and see where that takes you. Then we talked about the 5 Ps. So this is something that you can do from a strategic point of view. Go through it with your team. What's your personal purpose and connection? And people will have wonderful stories that come out of the woodwork as to why they choose to work where they do. Then really ask yourselves, what is the purpose of what we're doing? What are we trying to achieve? And what is the product that we've developed? And is it fit for that purpose? Have we really dived deep into the people that we're serving and understood how they can be part of the purpose that we're all working towards? And then, of course, if that's all in line, you won't need as much promotion because people will want to join your tribe and really help fight for the cause that you're fighting for. So you're not alone. This is a really good way to work. And in a way that feels authentic. It's not push marketing. It's what we call attraction marketing. So those are 3 top tips I would recommend on the strategic side of things. Happy to answer questions a little bit later on. And then in the meantime, Tilly's going to take you through some more tips that you can get into on the daily.
Cool. So these are some top tips. They especially come from the learnings from Mind the Gap and the Rare Disorders campaigns. So the first is about understanding your audience. So you really want to know who your audience is and do extensive research on them. So what are they motivated by? How do they make decisions? What influences them? Who influences them? and you want to know where they consume their news and where they're getting their information from. So if you really understand your audience, you'll be able to keep that in the front of your mind whenever you make decisions in your campaign. So this research phase is really important to understand your audience. And for example, in the Mind the Gap campaign, we did a lot of research about government and about policymakers. And we knew that the government were really heavily influenced by public opinion. We knew that politicians needed economic reasoning. So all of these insights that we gathered were really beneficial in helping us with our messaging and with how we spread that messaging as well. The next tip is about building strong messaging. So that's why it's really important to have the strong insights, because this can guide your strong messaging. And your messaging needs to be strategically guided from these insights, and it needs to be consistent throughout all of your channels. So when you build up your messaging and have a strong messaging that's grown from your insights, then you can make sure you have that same messaging integrated across all of your channels. So to make your messaging strong, some tools that we generally include that are effective include things like stats and research, things like anecdotes and storytelling, calls to action, taglines, hashtags, one-liners. So those are some of the kind of things that we've used in campaigns like the ones we've mentioned before. Another practical tip, especially when dealing with a social impact campaign, if you're using a lot of earned media, is to make it enticing for the media. So media are often your best bet at gaining a lot of wide interest if you've got a low budget campaign that needs wide reach, but they do need a reason to care. So is there a current event that makes this campaign relevant? Or do you have a strong story or research that demonstrates the importance of this issue? Maybe it's the first campaign or event of its kind, a bit like Mind the Gap, or maybe there's an anniversary or a significant date that you can wrap around your campaign. Another also important tip is when you're dealing with media, if you do have any budget, it's really important to have good photography that you can add to a media kit. So a media kit just has everything that media need to create a good story. So it'll have things like bios of your spokespeople, good photography, high resolution headshots of your spokespeople. And it's also often really good to have things like B-roll. So any video footage that you can put in your media kit can help entice broadcast media to cover your story. And the last tip is to rally the troops. So I'm sure that you've gathered this from the case studies, but if you're fighting for a cause that matters, there are also always going to be people that are affected by this cause or care about it. And your job is to rally them to help them get your message out there. So this is a low cost way to lean on your alliances. And what we often do is give those allies, give those organizations packs with everything that they need about the kaupapa and the messaging so that they can use that on their own channels. So they can put out things like their own media releases, they can do posters, they can do their own social media content, put articles on their websites. So yeah, we'll often put together a pack and just use something like Google Drive to have everything they need, and we can distribute that to like-minded organizations. And that rounds out our tips. So I think we'll go into Pātai.
That was fantastic. Thank you so much. And I've seen that there are some questions coming through. But I just wanted to start by asking, obviously for a lot of community and NGOs, they have very limited budget, and making a choice about where you prioritise your spend, you know, how do you decide whether you'll try and run the campaign yourself or whether you go through an agency? Any thoughts on how you make that decision?
I would say it's always good to have an expert opinion. If your budget doesn't reach to engaging an agency fully, it's worth at least having a conversation with someone who works in that space so that they can kind of bounce with you some ideas that may or may not work and give you a steer in the right direction. It's really difficult when you're kind of hitting blind and you're just hitting and hoping. If you get an opportunity with the media, you want to make sure that everything you say is intentional and that you've got other tactics going on, you know, whether that's in your social media or your newsletters or whatever else activity you've got going on that's supporting what you're doing there. So I think some of the things that Tilly talked about, if you've got any budget at all, you know, invest in some good photography, get a really good media kit together that can be stored on Google Drive with bios of your spokespeople, brief them really well, use your messaging, and that's likely to help you get some cut through. And then also, of course, you've got the partners that you can rely on. So there's things you can do that are really low cost and effective. Whatever your objective is, there's a million different ways that you can achieve it depending on the budget that you have. So while an agency can be great, make sure that whoever you're working with is really intentional with the way that they work and that they're known to get results, or just ask for advice on how you can do it yourself.
Really interesting questions just come through on the chat from Susan, with echoed by Casey, around the sort of negativity associated with the term marketing, particularly in communications and not-for-profit organisations. You know, marketing's a bit of a dirty word. And Susan comments, those who think we just need to do the work and the ongoing image and funding isn't something they need to worry about. That's kind of I guess, a view that a lot of people deal with. How would you respond to, oh, we're not into marketing?
I mean, I would say that, you know, perhaps a response to that is that that's putting a lot of pressure on an internal organisation, and being able to communicate your kaupapa and your purpose to a wider audience allows them to become your marketers for you. So being able to, communicate in a way that draws people to the kaupapa, and perhaps removing the word marketing and just replacing that internally with the word communications could be a way of massaging it into the organisation. Did you have some?
I really like the term that you used, attraction marketing. So, you know, it's not about pushing, and also too, I think the focus on the cause that you're so clear about, that was really compelling to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's how impactful do you want to be? Do you want to be as impactful as you can with the bodies that you have in your building, or do you want to harness a community and you know, rally a tribe around a cause? It's about scale, like comms, marketing, cause leadership. It's about scaling the impact. So marketing should be at the center of any not-for-profit, and especially now. So yeah, if you need help speaking within your team, we'll come and back you up.
A final question from me, in terms of, I was really interested in you talking about your partnership with Stuff. Tell us a little bit about how you approach Stuff and arrange that.
That one, we negotiated with them because we had so many alliances of the cause who could potentially be interested in advertising in our supplement that we got printed. We got a price, and then we helped them find advertising for that supplement, which basically paid for itself. So it was a paid production, and this is actually a really good tactic, and we did it also with a colleague of mine on the Kapiti Coast when we were launching a performing arts centre, where we got local businesses to advertise in an insert in the Sunday Star Times, and then we got to write all the stories that we wanted in there, and then that's delivered, across the region. So it's definitely worth looking at if you're needing to get scale but you don't have the budget. Partnerships and stuff are a great organisation to talk to, as are MediaWorks, like in terms of charitable options that they have as well. Is there anything to add on that, Mihi?
No, I think that's great.
Just realised we're nearly out of time, and I've just noticed that we've put in here that we have got some extra questions that have come through, and we will share some answers to those back as we're out of time when we send the recording out later. I just want to pass over to Michelle who do some closing admin before we do our closing karakia. But thank you so much, Bea and Mihi and Tilly. That has been really interesting and such impressive work. It's really been a privilege to hear from you, so thank you for that. Michelle, do you want to do your admin?
Please, everyone. Also just wanted to total that. Thank you so much, Mihi and Billy. There was so many generous sharing and tips there I think people can use. Now the lovely foundation wants to sponsor our talk series, so we just want to get a sense of how many on the line might receive funding from them. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to put up a little quick poll, and if you're still there, can you vote and see what you think there? Beautiful. I can see people voting away. Thank you so much, everybody. So helpful. Beautiful. Okay, I'll close that off in a second. Wonderful. And the other thing I wanted to mention was just to make sure we keep offering these Te Pūaha talks that really meet the needs of what your community organisations and charities are looking for. And could you give us your top bits of feedback? Anything else you'd like to hear about? I've popped that in the chat, a quick survey. And we'll make sure we share the recording in case anybody joins late. You can listen to Tilly and share their tips. Send around their slide deck in case you'd like to listen to those videos properly. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And thank you so much for your time, Māia. And back to Robbie to do our karakia.
Ia whakairea te tapu, ia wātea ai te ara, ia turuki whakataha ai, ia turuki whakataha ai. Haumi e, hui e, kaieki e.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kia ora, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very